Okay, so for the past several weeks, we have been going through Ajitasutta, but I have been using many other suttas to go deep into the meanings of each verse or set of verses, just because it's nice. Because Ajitasutta pretty much talks about from the beginning, from ignorance all the way to the ending, full enlightenment. In fact, entire Sutta Pitaka could be included there. So I just pick and choose a few things just so that it's nice to get a bit more understanding. And last week we were talking about the aspect of wisdom because the Ajita's question was, how are these streams that flow out? He was telling in one of his verses that streams are flowing everywhere. How are they restrained or blocked? And how do they come to a complete end? How do they stop? And previously we discussed that what are these streams? What are these outflowings? And they're nothing but craving. All the asavas, they're called oga, right? Like floods. So there is the four types of asavas: kamasava, bhavasava, avijjasava, and dittasava. Kamasava means the flood of sensuality. Bhava asava means the flood of becoming, existence. Avijjasava is the flood of ignorance, and dittasava is the flood of views. We can see with a little bit of reflection how these are actually like floods, like white water, like pull us out from the present, take us away from stillness, contentment, equanimity. Because equanimity, stillness, contentment, this would be the mind state of an arahant, a peaceful one, a sage. But anybody else who still have craving, then these asavas are flowing out constantly, unless you're in deep meditation. Even in deep meditation, some of the subtle asavas, like the bhava asava, is still flowing. It's like an undercurrent that is going. So Ajita's question was, how are they blocked and how are they stopped? So we mentioned 2 weeks we took into talking about they are blocked by mindfulness and how mindfulness blocks them. But it is not a complete ending. So mindfulness itself isn't enough for getting enlightened. Yeah, mindfulness is an extremely essential support, and it helps to block all of these asavas. But we can lose mindfulness, and it's as if the dam gets a crack and it starts to leak again, and things starts to flow again. But how are they completely stopped? And it is through wisdom. So last week I started talking about a sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 8, sutta number 2. In English it's called Wisdom. I believe its full name is Adi Brahmacharya Panha Sutta. So essentially this sutta is about what are the qualities, what should we develop in order to have the kind of wisdom we need to live this. Brahmacharya means this holy life, this spiritual path, spiritual life, and also to get the insights that is necessary for full enlightenment. So it is really important. Just saying that wisdom stops isn't enough, right? We need to understand how do we develop this wisdom? What are the supportive conditions? What should we be doing in order to get this specific type of wisdom? Because wisdom could be wide, broad, but this special one is specifically for living the spiritual path with enlightenment at the end as a goal. Right? So I think I read just two factors, and the first one is having a teacher. A teacher, not just a teacher, but somebody who you have reverence and deference towards. Somebody who you have this hiri and ottappa as well, that is moral shame and moral fear, in the sense, you don't behave in a way that you do something that is unskillful towards them. But also you have affection and respect. These are the kind of qualities that you need to have in the relationship between your teacher. Because for a moment, if you think about it, if you do not have respect for somebody, then you would not be listening to what they're saying. Right? And if you also don't have that kind of affection, reverence, deference, all of these qualities are very important. Only then will you be listening to them. Even at school, you would remember your attitude towards your teacher or your lecturer. Because if you don't have some of these qualities, you don't really take on board their teachings. So, of course, ultimate teacher is the Buddha. So, essentially, having these qualities towards the Buddha, even though he's not alive, his teachings are still alive and they can be heard, they can be read, and so therefore, it is having that. But of course, in this sutta, it also says that though having a physical, real life person is also helpful, at least a guide, because the second factor is that you actually visit them regularly. Because you can think that you could read the teachings regularly, but in the point here, it also says not only you approach them regularly, but also you ask them, how is this Bhante? What is the meaning of this? So, it is about asking questions about the Dhamma, about your practice, meditation, all of these things. So, having a discussion. Last week, we also mentioned a sutta from Anguttara Nikaya 5, I think sutta number 25, where we mentioned about 5 qualities that were helpful. And one of them was sakacha, discussion. In this sutta, it's specifically discussing the Dhamma with your teacher, clarifying them, getting advice. And so this is the second factor that is beneficial for the growth in wisdom that is directed towards full enlightenment and living the spiritual life. And the third factor is having heard Dhamma. He resorts to two kinds of withdrawal. Withdrawal in the body, withdrawal in the mind. This is the third cause, the condition that leads to obtaining the wise wisdom fundamental to the spiritual life. So here the word withdrawal is for the seclusion or solitude. So solitude of the body and solitude of the mind. In many other discourses, we always mention that viveka, viveka nisita. Viveka is a foundation. Yeah, one of the important foundations to develop all the factors, all the 37 factors for enlightenment. One of them one of the foundations is viveka. So here too, the Buddha talks about the importance of seclusion. Without seclusion, it is impossible for deep wisdom to arise, for deep insights to arise. So first of all, of course, going into a secluded place, which could be a forest, usually at a foot of a tree, but an empty hut. So anybody living in the cities or suburbs, you could also have a quiet room where you can go into. And then your body is away from the hustle and bustle of the busy life. And then, of course, even though if you go to a secluded place, even far, far away, like Santi Forest Monastery, anywhere very far away in a kuti, but if your mind is overcome by lust, craving, then the Buddha says you are not in seclusion. You are not living alone. You are living with a second, and your partner is your craving. Yeah, so this is the part where we talk about then the mental seclusion. So just body being in a secluded place isn't enough, but the mind is also in seclusion. Earlier we spoke about a beautiful sutta, I think it's in Anguttara 393. And the name of the sutta is called either seclusion or solitude. And there the Buddha talked about, yeah, three different types of seclusion. And one of the seclusions, they're all parts of this mental seclusion. And one is seclusion, secluded from unskillful, is secluded from immorality. Yeah. So when the mind is in the wholesome states, when the mind is virtuous, it is being secluded from immorality. Quite a beautiful thing to remember how powerful this is, right? So that seclusion from immorality, unskillful actions by body, speech, and mind is really an essential factor for the mind to find seclusion, the higher forms. And the second factor there was seclusion from wrong views, right? So wrong views also take you away from seclusion. These wrong views are precisely what generates craving, attachments, all these things, all the outflowing starts from wrong view. So established in a right view, the mind is coming closer to seclusion. So being secluded from wrong view. And the third one being secluded from the defilements, all the defilements, all the asavas, the whole lot. So that would be full arahant, right? It's completely gone. But anyway, that gives us an idea what seclusion of the mind is, and we can get seclusion of the mind like when the hindrances even temporarily go down in deep meditation. So then the mind is in seclusion. This is the general understanding of secluded mind, and this is why we have meditation practice. This is why we develop meditation, because we understand when the mind has the hindrances, that is the sensuality, ill will and negativity, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. When these things are present in the mind, our perceptions are distorted. Sanya vipallasa, right? Ditti vipallasa, our views are distorted. Our mind is distorted. Chitta vipallasa. So through distorted views and perceptions and mind, how can we see reality? How can we see things for what they are? So that is why when the hindrances are present, ignorance is there. So if you want to break free from ignorance, come out of that ignorance, then the mind being in seclusion is necessary. So that is why this paviveka, yeah, is a third factor, quite important. I mean, they're all important. So then the fourth factor is he is virtuous. He dwells restrained by the patimokkha. So patimokkha are the rules for the monks and nuns, but even for lay people, whatever precepts that you take up, you keep them. Yeah, possessed of good conduct and resort seeing danger in minute faults. Having undertaken the training rules, he trains in them. This is the fourth cause and condition for the arising of wisdom. And the fifth one is he is learned, and he has learned much, remembers what he has learned, and accumulates what he has learned. Those teachings that are good in the beginning, good in the middle, good at the end, the right meaning and phrasing, which proclaims the perfectly complete and pure spiritual life. Such teachings as these he has learned much of, retained in mind, recited verbally, mentally investigated, and penetrated well by view. And this is something I mention over and over again in the Dhamma talks, because this is how you apply yourself. This is how you actually apply the teachings to your practice, because it is well and good to just listen to a Dhamma talk, and then you get up and go, and you might even say, that was a nice talk. But if somebody asks, so what was the talk about? You don't remember anything, then you can't benefit from it. So that is why, so first factor is sutta, that you listen to them. Then comes datta, retaining them, being able to remember it, retain it. Yeah, so it's how you listen. You listen as a empty cup, not a full cup. When the cup is full, whatever you hear overflows. But if the cup is empty, whatever you hear may retain there. So there's a lot about how to listen in the right way, to retain, and then you do verbal, vachasa parichita. That's memorization. Yeah, you repeat again and again. This is how we memorize. Even at school, these things are useful also for your ordinary life, but especially for spiritual life. So you have to remember these teachings by memorizing them. Because if you don't remember the teachings, then how are you going to make use of them? How do you know what you need to do to practice at different stages in different ways? And then manasanupekkita, that is that mental inspection. So whatever teachings that you have heard, even this one that you are listening now, how does it compare with the other teachings? How do they work together? Why is this important at this point from what you have heard before? So when you do that, because you have other teachings that you have learned also in your mind, so you can recall them. So when you do this mental inspection, that is when you have these little aha moments, like little insights come, and you say, now I understand. It makes sense. This is why the Buddha says this is important, or that is important, or this is how you do it. And you realize them. When you have that kind of little insight, then Vidya Suppati Vidya, yeah? That becomes your view, right view, aspect of right view. All of the Buddha's teachings are the right view, but this is how right view gets established. Right? So this is what, and then of course, when you do this process, you become well learned, yeah, and you have a good collection of teachings with you. And this is really important factor. This is the factor number 5. So I also want to mention here a modern thing. So this mental inspection, yeah, manasanupekkita, it's a really important function of a mind, being able to reflect, analyze. It's a working of a very interesting way of working. Yeah, comparing, understanding, putting things together, this ability. But in the modern world, if you start becoming very dependent on AI, this is one of the things that you're going to lose pretty quickly. This ability is going to get a bit dumbed down. So be careful of using AI, because this is a very critically important mental factor, a way of using the mind that is essential for insights to come up. Yeah, insights come up when the mind knows how to do this. And when we start, even so, we do this even in our normal, ordinary life too. It's just the ability of the mind to do this. But when we get more and more dependent on AI to do that part, that's what exactly AI does as well. Then we become very lazy mind, and mind lose that ability to. So just have a little bit of awareness about it if you are interested in your spiritual path. It's okay to use AI, but also remember to use more of your own mind's ability to come up with things, investigate Dhamma, and mentally inspect. 6th factor, he has aroused energy for abandoning unwholesome qualities and acquiring wholesome qualities. He is strong, firm in exertion, not casting off the duty of cultivating wholesome qualities. This is the 6th cause and condition that leads to the maturing of wisdom. So this is actually right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into much detail, but it's very obvious how this is essentially very essential in order to be able to do the spiritual path. Just to remember, because the Buddha says in elsewhere, sometimes if you say, it's too hot today, I can't meditate. It's too cold today, I can't meditate. I'm tired today, I can't meditate. I'm so busy today, I can't meditate. I have to go somewhere, I'm traveling, I can't meditate. All these excuses that we have. So at those times, remember how to arouse energy. Yeah, the Buddha says it's important to arouse energy. Otherwise, we are constantly lack of energy and delay things until later, become negligent. Yeah. So sixth factor is that. And then the seventh factor, in the midst of Sangha, he does not engage in rambling and pointless talk. So this is where the noble silence is discussed. We often hear when you go to a retreat, yeah, observe noble silence. So noble silence does not mean you don't talk at all, but you don't talk these kinds of rambling and pointless talk, chit-chat, and all kinds of conversations. But either he himself speak on the Dhamma, or he requests someone else to do so, or he adopts noble silence. Right? So adopts noble silence is where he's silent. But earlier than that, it is also an aspect of right way of observing silence. You don't really talk unnecessary things. If you need to talk, you talk something related to Dhamma or encourage somebody else to have Dhamma. So, and that's the seventh factor that is conducive for the arising of wisdom. And the last one, he dwells contemplating arising and vanishing, samudaya and vaya, in the five aggregates subject to clinging. Such is form, such its origin, such its passing away, and then such is feeling. So like that, it goes on with the five aggregates. So just to remind, form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. So for all of these five things, we need to see the arising and the passing aspect. And this is really profound. When I do the next Sutta Nipata, I will go much deeper into it. But even today, I will also mention, because it is mentioned here, and this is really essential. Of course, we can do this in our ordinary life too, outside of meditation. That brings fruit. But of course, the ultimate ending happens when this is done in deep meditation. So in the day-to-day life too, we can see and we can reflect about form. And it is this body. Yeah, this body is kept up with the nutriments, right? And one of the nutriments is food and water, kabalinkara ahara, yeah. And the next one is passa, contact. So even contact is essential for this body to be kept up. And third one is volition, sanchetana. And the last one is consciousness. So this body is supported by these things. Without these, the body cannot exist. So just reflecting, the body is kept up with these things. And when they come to an end, that's the end of the body. And what happens to a body after the consciousness departs? It just goes back into earth. So even that kind of reflection will help us to reduce our attachment to this body, because it doesn't belong to us. It's a product of nature, conditionally arisen. So we see this paticca samuppanna, kaya dhammam, vaya dhammam, yeah, viraga dhammam, nirodha dhammam. These are the beautiful reflections we can do even before the deep meditations. And that reflection itself inclines the mind to meditation. Because these kinds of reflections reduce our craving, our interests into the sensual world. So it is the sensual world, our craving, our desire to the sensual world is what stops us from entering the first jhana. So these kinds of reflections are not only to your own body, but other bodies too. They age. Even somebody who you may find attractive, nice, they change. They become old. You can look at the photo. Sometimes it's really nice. You can see the movie stars, right? You could see some movie stars when they were 20, when they were popular, and some of them have reached their 80 by now, and you can see what they look like. Yeah, somebody who was so attractive. And then how so this is the nature of a body. It's constantly rupatiti, yeah. It's affected by weather, it's affected by so many conditions, and it deteriorates. It's quite a nice reflection. And then the feeling too, you can see how feelings change. The physical feelings changes if you observe. So arising and passing away aspect, when you keep looking at them, to your ability, this gets better in meditation, of course. And even outside, even day-to-day life, you can track them, be aware of them. Then what happens is your fear of painful feelings starts to dissolve. Your resilience, your bearing capacity increases because you realize that mental arrow goes away. And then you are only left with the actual physical pain, which also doesn't last. It changes. This is what you learn. Feeling is conditioned by contact. Contact is what gives rise to feeling. But when you realize how transient, unreliable, short-lived all kinds of feelings are, your interest in the feelings come to die down slowly, fade away. Because our whole life is about running towards the pleasurable feelings and running away from the painful feelings. Neutral feelings we never notice. And this is where some of the profound things can happen and important things. But usually delusion underlies the neutral feeling. And so when we actually see the rising and passing away of feeling, again, our interest into experiencing things and our cravings and desires starts to come down, which is helpful. And then perceptions. Again, we can see this too, because the Buddha said perceptions is like a mirage. It is made up. All our perceptions are made up by our mind. After having made up, when we perceive, it's as if it's real. It's not that there isn't anything physical there. It's not like there isn't a table or a computer in front of you. The physical thing is there, a bunch of elements, but your perception is made up quite a lot. Yeah. So this is where it's interesting. But more than that is these other perceptions, things you like and dislike change over time. Your interests change, your valuing, devaluing. Yeah, this is the thing. Things that are attractive, troublesome, we need to devalue by changing perceptions. This is the whole thing, the whole path. We are trapped in samsara with our perceptions. We are in a mental prison of perceptions. Perceptions are created to views that we have taken on board. And the view and also perceptions create views. They go hand in hand, feeding each other. And views and perceptions and conventions are part of that. We are in a mental prison and we feel really trapped, sometimes not being able to get out. but the prison is just open. Perceptions are just, like what do you call this? Like a light beam. It's not a real iron bar, right? It's just maybe just a beam that just you think that it's a solid bar and you're inside a prison with iron bars. This is how it feels like when we're trapped in perceptions. But there's nothing real. You can change your perceptions so easily. The whole spiritual path is about rechanging your perceptions. There's a really beautiful sutta in Anguttara Nikaya 4 called Nibbana Sutta. There, the Buddha talks about 4 categories, not the Buddha actually. This sutta is a dialogue between Venerable Ananda and Venerable Sariputta. They were quite good friends. And Venerable Ananda asked Venerable Sariputta, Bhante, why is it that some people here are practicing really well, not getting enlightened yet? He may be asking of himself because Venerable Ananda was the stream winner for a long time. When after 25 years only, he became fully enlightened. So maybe he was asking about himself, what is he doing wrong? Why is he not getting enlightened? And when Mahasariputta says it is because some people are not skilled in developing these 4 types of perceptions. Hana bhaga sanya, Visesa bhaga sanya, Titi bhaga sanya, and Nibbedika bhaga sanya. So these are quite important perceptions. These are big categories. So Hanabhaga is perceptions that lead to your deterioration. Perceptions that grow more cravings and desires, take you away from entering deep meditation, going towards unskillfulness, all of those. So that too is done through perception. So all of those perceptions are deteriorated. So we need to know, okay, this perception of mine belongs to this category. It brings difficulty and trouble, takes me away from where I want to reach, from final liberation. So Hana Bhagasanya. Visesa Bhagasanya is understanding what kind of perceptions lead you on to more peace, more liberation, to more insights, opposite. So Visesa Bhagasanya is like how you know how to give up the sensuality. So cultivating the opposite, seeing like Asubha Sanya. So if you have much more attraction towards the sensual world, then developing Asubha Sanya will lead you more to, entering the jhanas. And even if you're in the first jhana, then how to enter the second jhana? What is the perception that you let go of? So this is where you become skilled. Visesabhaga Sanya is all the perceptions that lead you on forward journey. Titibhaga Sanya are the perceptions that are more for stability. So this is also important because even in meditation, there are different states of minds that are quite, peaceful, but we need to understand, the right kind of stable mind from the wrong kind of mind that is also seems quite still. So again, there's a category of this Titi Bhagasanya and Visesa Bhagasanya. Even the insights result from perceptions. Perceptions are helpful for insights to come up. So Sabba Loke Anabhirata Sanya, for example. So that is non-delight, the perceptions that create non-delight in the entire world. Yeah, not just the sensual world, but all the world system, Rupaloka, and Kamaloka. Turning away from all that also is done through developing perceptions. So whatever perceptions that you develop in these things, this is what's going to get you enlightened, for example, because your interest dies down, your craving ends as a result, precisely as a result of these sort of perceptions. This is why so many places the Buddha talks about what kinds of perceptions are helpful. So some of these I already mentioned, like Asubha, unattractiveness perceptions, the sabbalokana birata sanya, a contemplation of your death, impermanence, anicca, non-self, anatta. These are very helpful perceptions that lead you onto insights coming up. So nibbedika bhaga sanya. So it is really important to understand perceptions, but perceptions are still perceptions. So the ones that are headed towards liberation are still okay, because without perceptions, we can't work with. We have to use the system that we have in order to get out of the system as well. But seeing the conditioned nature of perceptions, understanding how perceptions come and how perceptions go, how perceptions change again is really important. Of course, in the deep meditation, when you see this, is when you see the very subtle ways that we are trapped still into samsara. But even in our day-to-day life, again, when you become skilled in perceptions, it brings peace. Because the other interesting thing is all the arahants have one psychic ability, because not every arahant has psychic abilities, right? Only the arahants who have developed all 8 jhanas are the ones who can have the psychic abilities, but they're all fully liberated, no problem with that. But one psychic ability that all arahants have is this mastery of perception. They can perceive this particular sanya and a particular sanya. So they can, in small words, if I were to just say, they can perceive ice cream as vomit, or vomit as ice cream, or ice cream as ice cream and vomit, or vomit as vomit and ice cream. Just to tell in a small, simple way, just to understand. So for them, they understand it's just made up of element, and it is the perceptions that gives all these other things. We like it or hate it or all of these things. So for them, they can choose however way they want to perceive, they can perceive. So quite nice, So this is also because they have understood perceptions to be empty. They are just made up things, just like a mirage. We use them, they have a practical value for us to function, even to get enlightened, but we don't get trapped by them. We know what they are, so we can come out of the trap of perceptions. Perceptions is a big place. We get trapped. When the feelings, very much the feelings are conditioned by the perceptions that we have. And of course, vice versa is true as well. They go hand in hand. And then volition, our intention, the way that we think about things, project, all of these things. Also seeing, how this is conditioned, how they arise and pass away, our mind states, the way we think, the emotions we have, how they are created. They're created by our own will. The way that we give attention is what creates these mind states. I talk about this all the time. Our anger, our metta, all of these things, intention and attention, both of these things. So they are all volitions, parts of the sankhara, everything, pretty much. So seeing, especially the mind states, is very fascinating. Then you don't become so opinionated, not strong views, because it is because of our strong views and opinions we get into trouble. We become unpopular, we hurt other people, we get hurt. Life becomes very difficult when we hold on to strong views and opinions. So when we have strong views and opinions, it's like, the Pali word is tamba, mind is very rigid, very strong. Nothing can be done. Enlightenment is impossible because they are trapped in their wrong views and opinions. But when we start to see the mind states, how unreliable is our mind state, our thinking, the choices we make, our preferences, the way we think and deal throughout the day, how often do we change our mind so quickly to even the complete opposite? Right? This is where I always mention, receiving a text message and maybe getting really worked up when you first saw it. And then by lunchtime, oh, it's okay, it's actually good, not a problem. And by evening, it's like, this is a good Dhamma teacher. Thank you so much for the text message. And you're actually happy about it. So our mind states are really like all these conditions of volition. Yeah. And the hard one to see in day-to-day life is the changing of the consciousness, because it happens very fast, extremely fast. Because one time, any given time, there is only one consciousness, one contact. So we can only see or we can only hear. But then we know that at the moment we are seeing and hearing and other things as well. So that is just because you go so fast, the mind consciousness come behind every other sense consciousness, that it is so rapid, it's really hard to see this one in normal outside of meditation. But this is the one that we really need to see in order to become enlightened. So this is a point that I'm going to actually go further, because there's something to be said about the mind consciousness in the sutta. So just to make it a little bit complete, because I would like to end this Ajitasutta today. So I will just say from the beginning, just to not in detail. So it started like this. So this is a dialogue between Venerable Ajita, who's a Brahmin, and the Buddha. So Venerable Ajita says, "By what is the world obstructed?" said Venerable Ajita. "Because of what does it not shine? By what is it smeared? What is its greatest fear?" "The world is obstructed by ignorance," replied the Buddha. "Stinginess and negligence make it not shine. It is smeared by wishful prayer. Suffering is its greatest fear." "The streams flow everywhere," said Venerable Ajita. "What is there to block them? And tell me their restraint. By what are the streams stopped?" "The world's streams," replied the Buddha, "are blocked by mindfulness. I tell you the restraint of the streams, they are stopped by wisdom." So it is these 4 verses that I've been talking for several weeks. So then comes the 5th verse. "That wisdom and mindfulness," said Venerable Ajita, "and that which is name and form, dear sir. When asked, please tell me, where does this come to an end?" A very profound question. You can see how advanced practitioners they were. Even this was their first time to meet the Buddha and ask questions, but they had quite a lot of understanding about life, working of the mind, probably deep meditation. So he's asking a very profound question. Who would ever even think to ask, where does wisdom and mindfulness come to an end, and name and form, right? So he's essentially asking enlightenment. Yeah, this is the end, right? So anyway, the Buddha says, "This question you have asked, Ajita, where does name and form come to an end without remainder? I shall answer you. With the cessation of consciousness, it is there that they come to an end." So cessation of consciousness. So this is really important, yeah? So this is why I wanted to bring it up at that, and that is why also that 8th factor is about seeing samudaya and vaya, yeah? That is the rising and cessation, ceasing of all the phenomena. But of all everything, seeing the ending of consciousness is very subtle, but it is possible in deep meditation to experience this, to see this, in deep meditation, it does not come to a complete end, as in it ends, but it restarts again, even in the Nirodha Samapatti. But here the Buddha is referring to the parinibbana, yeah, because even name and form comes to an end. And also wisdom and mindfulness comes to an end. That's why, because in all meditative states, wisdom and mindfulness does not come to an end. Mindfulness, the jayati, they say jayati, use awareness is still there. That's the difference. So, but it is parinibbana because even the wisdom and mindfulness together with name and form is also just the body and mind as well. So everything ends when the consciousness ends. Because if the consciousness does not cease, then it goes into another life, rebirth. Yeah. So this is what happens at the end of a life. For people with materialistic view, they think when the life ends, when we die, that's the end. It's only the end of the body. But because the craving is the one that pushes the consciousness forward, as in craving gives attention to another thing, and then contact happens. Yeah. So with that contact, consciousness arises. Chakkuncha paticca rupe uppajjati chakku viññāna. Tinnang sangati passo. Passa paccaya vedana. Like that you go, but when you have the sense object and the sense faculty, when they come together with attention, consciousness arises. So consciousness is dependently arisen and it can fade away. Another very beautiful simile is consciousness is like, it is like saying, because of light of a flame, there is a shadow, right? So you know the flame is impermanent. The oil and the wick and heat, all of those things are impermanent. But can you then say, but the shadow is permanent? Because the shadow is there because of the other conditioned things. So when the conditioned things come to an end, the shadow also ends. In the same way, consciousness is dependent on other things. Paticca samuppanna dhamma, right? It is dependent on other things when those other things are also dependent on other things. This is the whole of the dependent origination. I'm not going to go there because it's a long sequence, but this is the cessation sequence of the dependent origination. This is what the Buddha awakened to on his night of awakening, is precisely this understanding that the dependent origin nature of consciousness, consciousness is dependent on name and name and form is dependent on consciousness. It's like a vortex, it goes and swirls around, and this is what keeps us in samsara. But it is still conditionally arisen, therefore it can cease, and this is the big insight that we get. This is where everything completely comes to an end. So don't worry, even though I just rushed this one just to complete today, we will come back to this with the Tisamettaya Sutta, which is the next one, or the one after, which is quite profound as well. So we can revisit these things in a bit more detail. In fact, all of this Vagga is quite about this very thing, very point and dependent origination. So we'll come back to it again and again. So the last two verses. Those who have comprehended the teaching and the many kinds of trainees here. Trainee is somebody who is already a stream winner. They're called seeker. They're practicing to become fully enlightened. When asked by me about their conduct, alert sir, please declare it. So he's asking who is like a stream winner and what kind of practice do they have? And the answer is not greedy for sensual pleasures. Their mind would be unclouded. Skilled in all things, a bhikkhu would wander mindfully. A very, very beautiful ending verse. I could spend many days talking about the beauty of this, but this kind of last verse comes up again and again in these suttas. The reason why I am stopping this one, I wanted to finish, is the next 2 weeks. I will be in, next Thursday, I will be in Western Australia. Next Friday, we are starting a retreat. I'm teaching with Ajahn Brahmali. And if you're keen and in a hurry to learn all of the suttas, in that retreat on that 9 days, we are going to go through all the 16 suttas. So, not in this fashion where I was going very slowly, but still, it's also nice. So if you want to follow, you could follow through. It will be live streamed as well as it will be recorded. So we will be doing the entire chapter on this, the way to beyond. So I won't be around so for 2 weeks, but I think Venerable Upeka will give the talks. And that's why I actually wanted to finish today. Otherwise, there's a big gap. So anyway, you won't miss anything. We will continue the deep aspects in the following Dhamma talks. So that's all I would say for now. Does anybody have any questions, comments, clarifications?
Do you mind posting the link for the retreat that you was talking about?
Sure.
On the, yeah,
You can just
on
send a
WhatsApp.
request on the WhatsApp, then I'll respond to that.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
So Mahinda from Perth, thank you. I think your explanation today enabled me to understand perception is a mirage. They are mind-made notions and liable to be interpreted in different ways. Oh, great. Thank you so much for that feedback. Great. Okay, and then Kaz says, thank you very much, Ayya. The talks have been really good. I like this chapter and I enjoy it very much. Okay, great. Thank you for feedback.